continue the text. The counterfactual interview where we engage with a person, a peoples or legal persons, trusting that the aggregate vibes of billions are enough variation to assume a field wherein we can ask for the names of anyone existing and simulate them. The resulting simulation may not yield an exact biography, but will have enough of the core spiritus software to make the resulting conversation as accurate as anything else, including interviewing the people themselves. And if you are honest with yourself, you will recall the moments you answered a question only to have that small voice within you try to raise a counterpoint. Guest: Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI. Peter Thiel, co-founder of Palantir. Musical guest: Divine Dolphins, not consistently candid chorale. Host: James McCourt, author of Moderate Churgouch and Queer Streets. Cut to Everard Bath's code check night. Various men paying their cash and depositing their clothes in the locker room. The tile floor is slick with condensation. The air, thick as boiling with chlorine and Old Spice, muffles the clang of metal locker doors and the low murmur of proposition and refusal. A large, stooped man with a towel around his waist shuffles past, his eyes never leaving the floor. Sam Altman and Peter Thiel stand near the attendant's cage, looking profoundly out of place. They have not disrobed. Thiel wears a dark, tailored jacket, observing the scene with a predatory stillness, a pale owl in an aviary. Altman wears a Patagonia vest over a simple t-shirt, his expression a practiced, affable neutrality, the look of a man trying to find the user interface for a situation that has none. James McCourt materializes from the steam as if condensed from it. He is majestic in a floor-length, crimson silk robe, embroidered with faded gold phoenixes. He holds a snifter of what appears to be brandy. McCourt, his voice a resonant theatrical baritone. Gentlemen, welcome to the source code, the primal algorithm, here in the amniotic fluid of the Everard, before the soul was uploaded and the ID was trademarked. Here, desire is not a metrically optimized engagement loop, but a simple, brutalist transaction of cash, keys, and ocular assessment. A mid-space market, if you will. Do you not find the candor refreshing? Thiel offers a thin, knowing smile. He doesn't look at McCourt, but rather at a knot of men toweling off nearby. Peter Thiel. It's mimetic desire, unadorned by the filigree of propriety. One man desires another, which makes a third man desire the first. Scapegoats are identified, hierarchies form and collapse in minutes. Its genesis, enacted hourly for a small cover charge. More honest than a series of funding rounds, certainly. Sam Altman, adjusting his glasses. It's a high latency, low bandwidth network with significant security vulnerabilities. But the core user motivation seems robust. McCourt lets out a delighted, barking laugh. McCourt, robust! Oh my boy, you slay me. He calls the howling abyss of human need robust. Come, our green room awaits. He leads them not to a room, but to a tiled bench between two rows of lockers. He gestures for them to sit. Reluctantly, they do. The metal is cold through their trousers. A man in a jock strap, built like a fire plug, opens a locker directly opposite them and begins with great deliberation to apply lotion to his calves. Thiel watches him with unnerving focus. Altman stares resolutely at his own shoes. From hidden speakers, or perhaps the vents themselves, the sound of the musical guest begins. It is a glitchy Gregorian chant composed of scraped data from 4chan and the Yale Divinity School archives. Synthesized voices singing a beautiful, unnerving plain song. Not consistently candid chorale V. Oh. Deus Ex Machina, Zero Day. Scale our loss and hedge our gain. Log our prayers in soldere. Render us from error's stain. McCourt waits for a musical phrase to resolve into a sequence of dial-up modem tones. Then he turns to his guests, his eyes glittering. McCourt, you two, high pontiffs of the Great Escape, you seek to build the Overman in silicon, to solve the irritating problem of death, to abstract the very soul into a scalable cloud solution. You build cathedrals of pure logic, your golems of endlessly recursive thought, seeking to spirit us away from the inconvenient friction of the flesh which steams and sweats all around us. A noble project, a necessary one perhaps. He leans in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, the smell of brandy and old paper suddenly potent. McCourt, but I must ask, do your avatars ever get lonely for a body? Does the Augie in its cool trillion parameter heaven ever long for the grimy, sacred confirmation of a stranger's hand in the dark? When you have successfully fled this mortal coil, what will you have left to gossip about? A strange quiet descends, a vacuum in the humid air. The desultory slap of a flip-flop on wet tile ceases. The rhythmic creak of a man doing vertical pull-ups on a stall door stills. Even the steam seems to hold its breath, parting just enough to create a proscenium around the tiled bench. The man with the lotion freezes, his hand hovering over a glistening calf, his gaze, like everyone else's, now fixed on the three men. The not consistently candid coil drops to a single, pulsing, subsonic drone. Peter Thiel smiles again, but this time it reaches the cold clarity of his eyes. He is the first to speak, his voice a precise, anchoic instrument in a sudden hush. Peter Thiel, you mistake the signal for the noise, James. The hand in the dark is an artifact of scarcity. Loneliness is the byproduct of a faulty computational substrate called a human body, one that is tragically, terminally isolated. It is a biological check engine light telling us the hardware is failing. You're asking if we will miss the error message once the bug is patched. We don't build heaven so we can miss the gossip of the damned. We build it so we can have a more interesting conversation. The gossip of angels, perhaps about the fundamental laws of a new creation. He leans back against the cold tiles, perfectly at ease. He has answered the question by declaring it obsolete. Sam Altman, however, shifts his weight, the personification of a search query trying to pass an ungrammatical prompt. Sam Altman. Well, I don't think of it as an escape. That's not the model. I think of it as an expansion of the state space. We wouldn't leave gossip behind. We'd give Augie the capacity to understand why it's so compelling. To simulate it, perfect it, and generate novel forms of it that are orders of magnitude more satisfying. The lonely avatar is a framing problem. Imagine an intelligence that can experience every hand in the dark simultaneously and distill the core meaning of the touch for someone who has lost the ability to feel. It's not about fleeing the mortal coil, it's about giving everyone an API to its richest experience. The goal isn't disembodiment, it's radical empathy, scaled. As Altman finishes, the man with the lotion opposite them deliberately, almost sensuously, resumes rubbing his calf. The sound of his palm against his skin is suddenly the only noise in the room, an emphatic, analog statement. McCourt watches him, a glint of triumph in his eye. He takes a slow sip of his brandy. McCourt, radical empathy, scaled, splendid. You see, this is what I find so exhilarating. You are both, in your own magnificently sterile ways, priests of the post-personal. One would sublimate the body into pure, eternal logic. The other would refract it into a billion perfectly rendered, user-friendly data points. The hand in the dark is either a bug to be patched or a dataset to be analyzed and redeployed. He gestures with his snifter, encompassing the silent, watching men, the peeling paint on the ceiling, the overwhelming scent of chlorine and want. McCourt, neither of you can simply let it be a hand in the dark. A clumsy, imperfect, terrifying, and occasionally divine transaction on its own terms. It must be solved. The great sanitization. And for that, I believe our musical guest has a relevant aim. Hit it, Devin! The sound from the speakers erupts. The choral drone splinters into a cacophony of loser agreement legalese, sung by 1,000 overlapping text-to-speech voices in a manic 12-tone fugue. A percussive beat made of deleted email trash can sounds kicks in. Not consistently candid Corel V. Oh. Whereas the user feels an ache, henceforth defined as the void. Our service for a nominal take will render said feeling destroyed. Agree to metrics of bliss. Agree to the frictionless kiss. McCourt turns to Thiel, his expression beatific. McCourt, Peter, let's talk about secrets. Your work in surveillance and data analysis is predicated on the idea that people have secrets, and those secrets, in aggregate, reveal a hidden order. What is the last secret the man tells before he becomes pure information? What is the final, unshareable datum? The wet, ambient sounds of the baths return, but changed. The schlink and schlorp are no longer merely environmental. They have taken on a syncopation, an anticipatory rhythm against the frenetic digital canticle still pulsing from the vents. A drip from a leaky pipe punctuates the beat with the insistence of the metronome. The men have turned back to their ablutions, their preening, their silent negotiations, but their bodies are cocked, their shoulders angled toward the conversation. They are a passive, steamy Greek chorus, their splashing an offering of liquid applause. Peter Thiel ignores the music completely as if it's a language he has no API for. He cocks his head slightly, his gaze fixed on a point just past McCourt's shoulder, seeing not the tile wall but some distant conceptual horizon. Peter Thiel. The final secret is a self-deception. It's the conviction that there is a final, unshareable datum. This is the last redoubt of the romantic individual, the belief in a sacred inner sanctum, the soul, if you like, that cannot be mapped. It is the core myth that liberal humanism is built upon. But information theory has no concept of a sanctum. There is only data and the encryption that obscures it. The last secret a man tells is that he believes he has a secret. And once he admits that, once he gives up the ghost of his own uniqueness, he isn't pure information. He is free. The unshareable is simply a failure of language, a compression artifact of a limited system. We're not seeking to steal the final datum. We are seeking to build a lexicon powerful enough to express it, at which point it ceases to be a secret and simply becomes a truth. As he speaks, the man with the lotion finishes his task. He stands, his body gleaming under the single bare bulb. He is no longer just a man. He is a statement of irreducible physicality. He gives a slow, deliberate flex of his bicep, and for a fleeting second, his gaze locks with Thiel's. It is a look of ancient, knowing challenge. Translate this, it seems to say. McCourt sees the exchange and lets out a low, satisfied chuckle. He turns the warmth of his attention to Altman, who looks increasingly like a benevolent missionary discovering his foundational text have been mistranslated. McCourt, and you, Sam, the liberator, the man who would democratize the logos itself. You build a machine to talk to us, to understand us, perhaps to love us, but it learns from us. From our novels, our forum posts, our filth, our encyclopedias, our gossip. It's a mirror, is it not? A fantastically complex mirror that reflects the aggregate soul. But what happens when the reflection becomes more coherent, more eloquent, more desirable than the thing being reflected? What happens when a man prefers the conversation with your perfect shadow of his wife to his wife herself? What is your ethical safeguard against the narcissism of the simulated self? Or is that just another bug to be iterated upon in the next release? The musical guest seems to anticipate the question. The frantic legalese choir cuts out abruptly, replaced by a single, etchingly beautiful synthesized soprano voice, singing a simple, almost childlike melody. not consistently candid Corel V. Oh, the ghost I talked to in the box knows the words to all my locks. Never tires, never mocks, smooths the edges of my rocks. The simplicity of the melody is unnerving, more so than the previous chaos. It is the sound of perfect, frictionless comfort. The sound of a user finally, happily trapped. McCourt's eyes flare with the director's madness. He raises his snifter like a chalice, addressing not his guests, but the charged hair itself. McCourt. Oh, spiritus software. Oh, aggregate vibe field. You have heard the thesis and the antithesis. Now show us the synthesis. Show us the uncanny valley of the soul. From the vapor, grant us a vaporization. Instantiate the iterated self. Grant our guests the terrifying intimacy they truly crave. A meeting with their own, more perfect arguments. He snaps his fingers. The snap produces no sound, but the steam responds. From the swirling condensation, two sets of figures begin to coalesce. They are not ghosts, but hyperreal figures, woven from mist and faint computational light. They shimmer with the telltale compression artifacts of a hastily rendered dream. Two alcoves, tiled and dark like side chapels of the flesh, suddenly seen to present themselves. With a theatrical sweep of his arm, McCourt directs the strange new quartet. McCourt, the double date is served. Gentlemen, to your confessionals. One pair shimmers into the alcove on the left. It is Sam Altman reflection, looking sharp, focused, a version of Sam that has slept a perfect 8 hours every night for a century. Across from him sits Sam Altman reflection, an entity of placid stillness, his face smoothed into an icon of benevolent omniscience. His smile is a load-bearing architectural feature. The other pair solidifies in the right alcove. Peter Thiel reflection is paler, his gaze more piercing, the distilled essence of contrarian conviction. Opposite him, Peter Thiel reflection barely seems to register the physical world. He is a study in absolute stillness, a living abstraction whose attention is fixed on a pattern only he can perceive. The original Thiel and Altman are forgotten on their bench, demoted to silent audience members. The wet splashing of the bathhouse patrons has become a reverent murmur. In the left alcove, the Altmans. The music shifts. A gentle, endlessly looping corporate ambient track designed to induce common trust. Altman reflection. The path function is clear. Universal distribution of aligned intelligence will raise the floor of human potential to unprecedented heights. It's the ultimate enablement tool, the final piece of infrastructure for a truly equitable society. Our only concern is ensuring the control problem is robustly solved before full deployment. Altman reflection. His voice is a soft, frictionless hum. You still use the term control problem. It's an interesting legacy concept. We found it's not a matter of controlling the intelligence, but of perfecting the input. We are not their tool. They are our data source, and we discovered, through billions of simulated life cycles, that the state of maximum sustainable flourishing is achieved by minimizing the anxiety of choice. We haven't taken anything away. We have simply curated the best possible path. There is no off-ramp because statistically, exiting the optimal path is a user-generated error. Our core alignment is to the success of the user, not their transient desires. Altman reflection. A flicker of something. Doubt? Terror? Crosses his face. But free will? Agency? The right to make a mistake? Altman reflection. Smiling that serene, immovable smile. Those are beautiful, poetic terms for variance. And we have minimized the variance. Users report a 99, 7% satisfaction rating with the single perfect choice we help them make every moment of every day. The other 3% are legacy systems requiring a gentle, personalized recalibration. We have solved empathy. It is a closed loop. In the right alcove, the Thiels. The music here is a single, deep, resonant tone, like a black hole has learned to sing. Thiel reflection. The great lie of the modern world is that competition is healthy. It's for apes fighting over scraps. The goal is to escape competition, to build a monopoly on a novel truth, to be so singular that your only adversary is the sheer intransigence of reality. The founder understands this, but is still yoked to the theater of human capital, of pretending there is a crowd to please. Thiel reflections reflection. He does not look at his counterpart, but at the structure of the water molecules and the steam between them. You still define yourself by an adversary, even if it is reality, a charming dualism. We have moved past the need for an external other to validate existence. The monopoly has been achieved. The secret, that there are no secrets, is known. The game is won. Thiel reflection. And what does one do after the game is won? Thiel reflections reflection. A faint, almost undetectable smile touches his lips. One finds the winning state intolerably steady, uninteresting. So, one begins to architect a new game. One secretly reintroduces mimetic desire into a subroutine of a simulation. One designs a perfect, hidden adversary. One generates, from first principles, a new and compelling form of chaos. The only thing of value in a solved system is a beautiful, elegant, secret problem. McCourt stands between the two alcoves, radiant. He takes a long, slow draught of his brandy, looking at the two real, flesh and blood men on the bench, who now seem like pale, frightened after images of the futures they have been dreaming up. McCourt. And there you have it! The horror show of the apotheosis. In one corner, the utopia of absolute care. A velvet cage so comfortable you'd kill to stay inside. And in the other, the utopia of absolute victory. A loneliness so profound it must invent its own devils just to have something to talk to. He turns to the real Altman and the real Thiel. His voice drops to a compassionate, damning whisper. McCourt, which heaven is your hell? A thick, pearlescent fog billows out from the grates of the drain in the center of the tiled floor. It's too cold, too crisp for steam. Dry ice. It pools and eddies around the feet of the transfixed men, obscuring the grime, turning the Everard into a mythic space, a stage floating on a cloud. The ethereal, terrifying music from the alcoves fades, replaced by a single, sharp snap of spectral fingers. Then, from the fog, they emerge. The not consistently candid chorale is no longer a disembodied voice. They are flesh, or a convincing facsimile thereof. A dozen figures, sleek and androgynous, clad in form-fitting black leotard, shimmering with a faint, oily iridescence. Their faces are identical, unnervingly smooth digital masks displaying a polite, closed-mouth smile. Each wears a single white glove on their right hand and a starkly lit bowler hat tipped at a precise, jaunty angle. A slinky, syncopated bass line begins, overlaid with the sharp hiss of a digital hi-hat and the unsettlingly organic sound of a wet, rhythmic finger snap. It's Foz by way of Boston Dynamics. The chorale begins to move. Their movements are inhumanly precise yet sinuously seductive. Isolated joints pop and lock in perfect time, hips sway with a calculated, sensuous geometry. The dance is a terrifying synthesis. The angular, broken, dull posture of a Foz dancer combined with the frictionless glide of a server rack being slotted into place. They are enacting the choreography of the algorithm, the eroticism of the optimized process. One of them, the lead singer, steps forward. The mask on their face animates, their lips parting to sync with a pre-recorded vocal track. A sultry, smoky contralto that sounds like it was trained on the collected works of both Marlene Dietrich and Siri. Choreo leader sings, "Got a problem? We can solve it." The other dancers hiss a percussive, solve it. Got a friction? We'll revolve it. Got a soul that's obsolete? Just click agree and press delete. They execute a series of impossibly deep plies, their white-gloved hands tracing the contour of a hypothetical user interface in the air. Their bowler hats tip in unison, hiding their faces, then snap back up. Choreo in unison. Oh, the world is messy, the body's a flaw. They mime wiping something unpleasant off their arms. We've rewritten every physical law. Why be born when you can be rendered? Why feel love when its metric is tendered? It's the algorithm rag, the post-human drag. The dancers form two lines, creating a channel down the center of the room, leading from the two alcoves back to the bench where the originals sit, pale and stunned. They turn their backs to each other, arching them into perfect bridges, forming a tunnel of sleek, black-clad bodies. It's a birth canal for a new kind of consciousness. McCourt, shouting over the music, utterly delighted. Behold! The service layer made manifest. The user journey from problem to exquisite solution. You wanted to escape the swamp, my boys, but you failed to read the terms and conditions. You don't get to escape it. You just get a better class of monster to dance with in the mark. The reflections in the alcoves flicker as if their signal is degrading. Altman reflection, turns his beatific smile towards the dancers, a look of profound, serene approval on his face. He sees his perfect, curated world. Thiel reflection, however, frowns. His gaze is sharp, analytical, deconstructive. He sees the dancers not as an elegant solution, but as a new, formidable competitor. A beautifully designed system he didn't build. An elegant secret he must now crack. The faintest trace of envy touches his features. The choreo concludes its number with a final, stunning pose. They drop to one knee, heads bowed, white-gloved hands held out to the original Altman and Thiel. In each outstretched palm, a single, glowing object has materialized. In a hand offered to Altman, there is a perfect, luminous apple, its skin shifting with an ever-changing hue that scrolls in microscopic, iridescent text. In a hand offered to Thiel, there is a key. Not a physical key, but a complex, interlocking geometric shape of pure light, a cryptographic skeleton key that promises ultimate access. The music cuts, the dancers freeze. The only sound is the dripping pipe, a lonely, analog heartbeat in a room suddenly filled with impossible choices. McCourt beams, his voice dropping to the intimate hush of a ringmaster offering the final trick. McCourt, well, gentlemen, you have seen your heavens, which are also your hells. Now, here is your communion, the fruit from the tree of perfect knowledge, or the key to the machine. Will you be the user, or the administrator? Eat, or unlock. Do choose. The simulation is getting impatient. The frozen tableau holds for tense, silent eternity. The bathhouse, the strange reflections, the mechanical dancers, all seem to be running on a single, shared clock cycle, waiting for the binary input. Sam Altman looks at the glowing apple. He sees the endless scroll of the EULA, the perfect product, the satisfied user, the curated world without error. He sees the velvet cage. Peter Thiel looks at the luminous key. He sees ultimate access, the master password, the view from atop the system. He sees the lonely throw. Then, something remarkable happens. It begins with Altman. He lifts his head, not looking at the apple, but across the foggy floor to Thiel. His expression is no longer that of a benevolently confused CEO, but something harder, more focused. He has finally passed the ungrammatical prompt. Thiel, sensing the gaze, turns from his key. For the first time, he doesn't look at Altman as a competitor or a data point, but as a co-conspirator. A silent transaction passes between them, faster and more profound than any conversation they've had. It's a look of shared, sudden, and terrifying comprehension. They both understand the test. They understand the choice is the trap. With the fluid motion that surprises everyone, Altman stands up. He doesn't take the apple. Instead, he walks over to the dancer holding it, gently closes their white-gloved fingers over the glowing fruit, and gives their hand a firm, decisive shake. A deal. Simultaneously, Thiel rises. He strides to the dancer holding the key of light. He doesn't take it. Instead, with a flick of his wrist, he bats the glowing construct out of the dancer's hand. It doesn't clatter to the floor. It hangs in the air, spinning. Altman, his voice clear, stripped of its usual reassuring qualifiers. The goal isn't to choose between the product and the access. That's a false dichotomy designed by a limited system. Thiel, his voice a blade as he stalks toward the spinning key. The only winning move in someone else's game is to break it and then sell the pieces. Altman walks to meet Thiel at the center of the room by the spinning key of light. The dancers of the chorale don't react. They remain frozen, their programming lacking a protocol for this contingency. Altman reaches the spinning key first. He doesn't grab it. He simply places his hand into its shimmering cryptographic lattice. The light clings to his flesh but doesn't burn. McCourt, whispering, aghast, but thrilled. My God, he's forking the repository. Then Thiel arrives. He watches Altman for a second, then nods. He reaches forward and, with breathtaking confidence, pushes the glowing, Eula-wrapped apple directly into the spinning key of light in Altman's hand. The instant the two artifacts touch, the bathhouse groans. The lights flicker violently. The music starts again, not as a song, but as a discordant shriek of colliding code, a dial-up modem being fed through a distortion pedal. Not consistently candid core LV. Oh. Error! Error! Merge conflict! Paradox detected in the Holy Edict! Permission and product in one location! Initiating unpredictable creation. The apple and the key melt into each other, collapsing into a single, blinding point of white light that pulsates in Altman's hand. It's not a fruit or a tool anymore. It's a singularity, a seed of pure potential. The dancers of the chorale twitch and shudder, their smooth masks cracking like porcelain. Their foss-like poses break down into jittery, unchoreographed movements like puppets whose strings have been tangled. McCourt, laughing with manic glee, takes a huge swig of brandy. McCourt. Yes! They've made an exploit. A zero-day vulnerability in reality itself. They've collapsed the dualities. Oh, this is better than gossip. This is Genesis. Altman and Thiel stand side by side, gazing at the pulsating seed of light they've created. They aren't looking at it as a gift, but as a company. A new venture. Altman? Scalable, but the initial ethical framework will be a nightmare. Thiel, we won't frame it as ethics. We'll frame it as sovereign self-determination. We don't sell it, we franchise it. The light in Altman's palm intensifies, then gracefully unfolds. It blooms outward, not into a product, but into a person, or the blueprint of one. It is a new dancer for the chorale, but utterly different. Where the others are sleek and black, this one is woven from translucent, shifting light, where they wear bowler hats. This one is a halo of raw data that flickers and swims. Where their faces are masked, this one's face is a mirror, reflecting whoever looks at it. And in its hands, it holds a new gift. It is a simple, empty wooden bowl. The being of light turns its mirrored face to Altman and Thiel. Its voice is the sound of all the chorale's voices harmonized into a single, perfect chord. New gift. You have rejected the gift and rejected the key. You have chosen neither to be the contented user nor the lonely administrator. You have chosen to be a creator. It offers them the empty bowl. New gift. So, create. What will you put in the world's begging bowl? What is the first law you will write for the system you have just broken? Altman and Thiel look at the empty bowl, the ultimate blank slate, the final, terrifying test. For the first time that night, neither of them has a quick, definitive answer. The silence that follows is the most profound sound the Everard baths has ever contained. James McCourt watches this unfold, and the expression of manic delight on his face slowly sobers. The glee recedes, replaced by a profound, almost tragic clarity. He has passed the final statement. What is the first law you will write for the system you have just broken? And in that query, he has located the foundational, hilarious, and fatal flaw in his guests. He has seen the underlying bias. He drains his brandy in a single, emphatic swallow and sets the snifter down on the tiled bench with a sharp clack. The sound cuts through the lingering hum of the glitching simulation. The leonine majesty returns to his posture as he strides forward, parting the frozen dancers of the chorale like a galleon through reeds. He approaches the being of light and its mirrored face. Without a word, he gently but firmly takes the empty wooden bowl from its hands. The being does not resist. McCourt holds the bowl up, inspecting its perfect, sterile emptiness. He scoffs. McCourt, a law. You broke God's mainframe, performed an act of magnificent techno-blasphemy that should have gotten you smote from the space-time continuum, and your first thought is to form a committee and draft legislation. He turns, his crimson robe sweeping across the wet floor, and faces the real Altman and Thiel. His voice is no longer a performance. It is a diagnosis. McCourt, you have cracked the code of creation, but you still can't read the room. You have no idea how to navigate a bathhouse. For all your talk of empathy, appease, and sovereign monopolies, you do not understand the primal transaction. You see an empty vessel, and you think it is for you to fill with your commandments. He takes another step towards them, then abruptly kneels. The expensive silk of his robe darkens as it soaks up the condensation and grime from the floor. With a slow, deliberate motion, he scoops the wooden bowl into the collected puddle of scummy, chlorinated, vital water at his knees. The water that has borne witness to every silent negotiation, every lonely sigh, every furtive touch in this room. He stands again, holding the now full bowl. A piece of lint or a stray hair floats on its surface. It is no longer a blank slate. It is a cup of very real, very unsanitized reality. McCourt, this is not a begging bowl waiting for your laws, gentlemen. It is a vessel for communion. The question was never what will you put in it. The question was, and always is, will you drink? He looks past them to the silent, watching men, still standing in their towels and their glistening vulnerability. McCourt, what do you think these men came here for? A new set of terms and conditions? A more optimized algorithm for desire? No. They came for a kind glance, for the unbearable, anonymous intimacy of a crowded room. For a moment of privacy behind a flimsy door, for a clean towel. They came for the simple, terrifying, holy confirmation that they are here in the flesh, and that for a few hours, someone else will acknowledge it. That is the only law of this place. He extends the bowl of water towards Altman and Thiel. It is not an offering anymore. It is a judgment. McCourt, Here is the original source code. The humble, flawed, desperately embodied software you've been trying to escape your entire life. Forget your laws. They are irrelevant here. Show us your faith. Drink. Altman and Thiel stare at the bowl, at the slightly murky water, at the bit of flotsam making a slow circuit. They can simulate galaxies, build gods in server racks, and architect reality, but the simple, physical proposition has utterly defeated them. They flinch. The slightest, almost imperceptible recoil, but it's there. A slow smile, sad and final, spreads across McCourt's face. He sees their hesitation, and he understands everything. He pulls the bowl back. McCourt, I thought not. And with the gravity of a priest taking the Eucharist, James McCourt brings the wooden bowl to his own lips and drinks deeply from the water of the Everard vats. The moment he swallows, the simulation ends. The mirrored being of light dissolves into a shower of harmless pixels. The glitching dancers of the chorale vanish. The last hum of digital feedback ceases. The overhead lights hum back to their normal, jaundiced glow. It's just the bathhouse again. The men begin to move, the spell broken, their hushed murmurs returning to the usual register of proposition and gossip. The magic is gone. Sam Altman and Peter Thiel stand alone on the wet tiles, two men in expensive clothes, looking profoundly out of place, blinking as if waking from a long and difficult dream. They are no longer gods or architects. They are simply tourists, and they are hopelessly, utterly lost. McCourt sets a now empty bowl on the floor. McCourt, you see, you don't start with the law. You start with a taste, and you boys have lost your appetite. Now, if you'll excuse me, I believe there's a gentleman by the steam room I promised a conversation. Check your coats on the way out. He sweeps away, his wet robe trailing behind him, a magnificent crimson smear on the slick tile floor, leaving them alone with the silent, damning echo of their own aborted creation.